The Shepnaz Podcast begins now.
Welcome to the Shepnaz Podcast. As you might have guessed, it is. I'm Joe, and I'm your host today. And we have already started in third gear, and we're just getting started.
It's how we roll, baby.
Yes.
Wowzers.
Yep. Welcome today.
Welcome.
We enjoy getting to spend this time with you
Yes.
and with each other.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And we had a nice lunch today
We
together.
did. We had a great day together.
Yeah.
We did a little field trip, went over to, are we allowed to, I suppose we can
Yeah, why not?
name it.
Why not? Do you want me to say it or you want
Sure.
to say it? We
Don't
went,
say it.
we took a little road trip, some of the boys at
Yeah.
church today, myself, Noah, Joe, Pastor Nick, and Pastor Brett.
Yeah.
All loaded up in the minivan, which nobody can make fun of now because it got us all the way to Newark, Ohio
Yep.
for Chang's Buffet, best Chinese buffet around town.
Yeah.
And by that, I mean it's 30 minutes away, but it was worth the drive.
It's a lot of fun.
It was great.
There was music and singing on the way back.
Yeah.
We were in such a good mood after going to the buffet.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we jammed some Creed. Had some Creed jams in there. Some hip hop.
Katy Perry.
Some Katy Perry.
Appearance.
All right.
We're adults.
So, in the meantime, we decided, you know what, when we come back, we should probably do a podcast. And
True.
so here we are.
We made it.
And what would be our topic for today, Pastor Zach?
Well, my friends, today is a very special day on the podcast because on the day you are listening to this podcast, tomorrow, the one and only Mr. Noah Burris will be a married man.
Yay.
Signing off.
Your world's about to be a little bit lighter, my friend.
Yeah. That's what I've heard.
That's what you've heard. It's great. But no, we are very excited for you and for Rachel. It's going to be awesome.
Yes, very blessed.
So, what I kind of thought we'd talk about today, seeing as how we are all about to be married men on the podcast for the
Yes.
first time. Crazy. Yeah, think about that. Next week, you're going to be married on the podcast. That's wild.
Yeah.
Crazy, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to think ahead. Think
Yeah.
ahead.
Yeah.
So, movie magic. But, so I was just thinking, so I've been married for 10 years going on 11, and Joe, you've been married for
Long time.
long time. More than 10, less than 1,000.
Actually, we're on 33 years
Nice.
right now. So
That's
yeah,
awesome.
Wow.
That's awesome.
we've been at it for a minute.
Yes.
We've
So,
just about got it figured out.
just about nice. So, with that being said,
Are you 33?
I'm 34. Thank you very much.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
Look at
it'll
that.
be 34 years for us this August.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Look at that. Look at that. So, with that being said, you know, as you all know, on the listeners of the podcast, that we are ministers and we do ministry in various areas. And so, kind of just wanted to chat about what it looks like to do ministry with your spouse.
Yeah.
And eventually we'd love to get our spouses on here to share their perspective of it. But I know for me, Kristen and I mean, we met through music and through worship. I mean, we've been doing it together since, we might have been even before we were dating. We were singing together and doing worship together. So we've been doing worship ministry side by side pretty much since day one. And that, you know, is a huge blessing. Also brings some challenges at times. But just kind of wanted to talk about that and maybe have you pick our brains if you had any questions on what that looks like now that you're entering into the world of being a married man and you're going to be doing ministry with your wife,
Yeah.
which you have already started doing. So do you want to kind of tell us what Rachel's been doing?
Yeah. So she has taken the lead on the children's ministry actually in Johnstown for that campus and just kind of being the point person for Sundays and kind of putting Sundays together, and also been singing on the worship team when I'm in dire need. Normally she's the one I call when I'm like, I need somebody to come. So, but yeah, that's been super cool to started doing together. And yeah, that's kind of what we've been doing recently. So it's fun.
That's awesome. So Joe, what about you and Susan? What is your...
We have a long history. I will say this, and I know because she diligently listens to every episode, so she will hear this.
Whether she likes it or not.
I'm not fluffing this up just because I know that she's listening. This is completely true. Mm-hmm. Like, God gave me the perfect mate. Yep. And, that's one of the great things about when you are turning over your relationships to God, that he can point you to the right person. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you thousands of stories, but I will say that Susan and I got together when we were in high school. We were high school sweethearts in junior year at the Grove City High School. Hey. And how could I not fall in love? She was the field commander of the marching band. Oh, come on. And she could do a backflip during the salute.
Dang.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
There's video evidence.
Nice.
But we were in band together, and we were in choir together, in drama. And when you start doing all of those electives, well, then you start finding yourself in classes together as well, because that's how schedules work out. Yep. So it was after we had been dating for a while. Actually, she grew up in Lutheran church, and she kind of had a Christian knowledge, but she didn't have a personal faith. And it was while we were dating that she was like, I want that personal relationship. Mm-hmm. And so I can remember it was one evening, late in the evening, and we were saying goodbye to each other out in the driveway of my house that I grew up in. And she was like, I know I was saying something very meaningful about my deceased grandfather, and I found out later she wasn't listening at all, because really God was talking to her at that moment, and that was more important. And I agree, it was more important. And so she was like, I want to do this. So we went back inside, and in my family room of the house that I grew up in, there she prayed to receive Christ with me and my dad. And it's ever since then, we've been partners. In life, and that means also in ministry. Yeah. Now, I definitely got the better end of the deal because, and I think you can probably speak to this and probably will, is that when you happen to be the person that is getting a lot of, I don't know how to say it, responsibilities or demands on your schedule and so forth, then your partner just sometimes has to live with that. Yep. And if you've been in those spots, you know what I'm talking about. And, Susan has always been very supportive of whatever God is calling me to do, but that also many times puts a burden on her also, because she helps carry that weight, whether it was when our kids were younger, carrying that weight of like, Dad's busy doing this, or, being at church all hours of the day and night, and understanding that even when she's not there with me, that even if I'm there late, she's taking care of things at home while I have responsibilities here at church. And I know you're hearing everything that I'm saying, and like you're living it right now.
100%.
And there's many times that, she has a calling of ways that she ministers apart from what I do. There are great times that we get to minister together. Like she's involved in tech ministry, but she's also involved in the worship ministry. And over the years, she's been involved in a lot of kids ministry. In fact, even recently, she has kind of felt that pull and talked to Brett about like, hey, I think I'm supposed to help out with VBS. And he's like, yes.
Yes, please.
So There's a lot of that, kind of trying to balance that. More recently, she just got done doing, I don't know, a dozen Saturdays and I don't know how many days during the week for cheerleading while, I'm doing some other things. So you find that if you can be of one mind in the Lord together, then that makes all this other stuff a lot easier to deal with. It's never perfect because we're all human. And there are times when last night was a good example. It just so happened to be that it was the Spirit was prompting me to have a conversation with somebody. And so I'm having a conversation until 10:30 at night, and
I thought I saw your car still here when I was leaving,
and it was good. I mean, it was obvious that the Lord was in it, and so much to Susan's credit, she's not beating me up when I get home, where have you been? Yeah, and she knew exactly where I was, and but we are partners in that way, and the Lord has blessed that, and I'm very, very blessed to have her. As my wife.
That is awesome. Well, I definitely Kristen and I say it all the time. We look up to you guys as such an example of what a good godly couple that serves in ministry looks like.
Well, thank you.
And and again, I'm not just saying that to blow smoke, but I look at how much you guys do for this church and for the kingdom, and how many countless hours you spend. I mean, what people probably don't know, and hopefully I'm not pulling too much showing behind the curtain, but some of these podcasts, I'll be getting emails or messages from you at 11, 12 o'clock at night. Hey, just uploaded this, or hey, have you thought about this? And I'm bro, I've been in bed for 2 hours, man. What are you doing up and working? But to just see the way that you and Susan work together, it's an inspiration for us. And I know I'll brag on Susan for a minute too, because one of the things I love that I'm always kind of been worried about a little bit, in ministry now that we have kids who are toddler age, and they're not cute little babies you can hold and cuckoo and gaga over anymore.
They're still cute.
They're they're adorable. They're just not chill. Especially Olive, our youngest. There's nothing chill about that kid. But one thing I've loved about you and Susan and even Rob and just everybody on our team, I'm always nervous about my kids being a burden. So when it comes to serving in ministry together, so Kristen and I worship together all the time. And so Tuesday nights, we're here past our kids' bedtime, and our kids are here with us, and they're running around and they're getting tired and cranky. But so many times I'll look out on a Sunday morning or a Tuesday night for rehearsal, and I see Susan's out there with coloring books, or even brought in coloring books and crayons for the kids. One time it was just hey, I just thought they would like these. You can just keep them here at the church, and they can use these and play with them. And Pastor Rob's always messing with them, and they're following him around like little ducklings in the mornings. They're helping him sweep the floor or whatever. Even Will Ruark, they love Will Ruark, and they will climb on him and beat him up, and they just love it. And so it's been so cool. For me, one of the biggest things I've seen is in our ministry is being in places where we have a good support system. We never felt even from day one that we were on an island alone. Shout out if they ever listen to the Phillips family from Grove City. They're kind of the resident grandparents of all the staff that have kids. And so they'd come every Saturday night when it was just Lark and she was baby. And they would take her and they would hold her and cuddle her and watch her during service so that we could just focus on doing ministry. And we had that at Logan too. We had an amazing small group down at Logan Church, and they became a second family to us, and never had to hesitate. Oh man, we gotta go somewhere. We have to have an overnight. Just call up anybody in that small group. Just bring them over. We'll come over to your house or whatever. Had a huge support system there. And then now here we have an even bigger support system. We have our small group. We have all the people in our ministry. I know even you guys offered a couple weekends ago with, one of our kids was sick when we were getting ready to leave for the Overflow conference. And we're we don't know what we're going to do because we don't want to send her somewhere sick. And you guys were we've been around sick babies all the time. It's what grandparents do. We can take her if you need us to. So for us, one of the biggest benefits in having a healthy marriage and ministry is having that support system that you're not alone. And when stuff does happen, not only are people there for you physically, if you need a babysitter or whatever, but knowing like, I'll shout him out every time, like Chad LeMay. That dude is like one of my biggest prayer warriors. And I know like he texts me like once a week, like, hey man, how you doing? How can I be praying for you? Everything cool? So just knowing that we have a support system that's not only going to help us when we need it, but knows that they're lifting us up in prayer. And that has made ministry for us night and day different. And I will say, like, one of the harder things for us, I think maybe a challenge that we had, especially coming here to Shepherd, a lot of but when Shelly was here, her and I both were worship leaders on staff here.
Right.
And for our entire relationship together, it had always been Kristen and Zach. Like, that we worshiped together every Sunday. Like, we were the dynamic duo. Like, if there was a duet, Kristen and Zach will sing it. It was like that forever. And so coming here, it went from Kristen and Zach to Shelly and Zach. And so there was that weirdness of like, it's not just us anymore, And so, Kristen wasn't up there with me every Sunday. And so there was some not bad tension. It was just different. It was just something we had to adjust to. But through that really strengthened, kind of our view of worship. We don't have to always be standing side by side to worship, though I love doing that. And it's something that's very important for our relationship and our marriage. But at the end of the day, it's all about worshiping Jesus. And I can do that whether my wife is standing beside me or not. And so, when things changed and Shelly moved down to Myrtle Beach, now I get more opportunities to be up there with my wife. And it's beautiful, but again, then you throw kids in the mix, right? So that's where that support system has been really helpful for us. So, yeah.
I think something that you'll have, you've probably already seen this, but I think over the years you cherish it. And I know you've mentioned this, Zach, is when you see your wife worshiping,
Yup.
like it tears me up in a
Same.
good way.
Same.
Like there'll be times, I'm behind the wall in the control room or whatever, and Susan's out singing on the praise team, and I can just see her worshiping, and like it takes it to a whole different level of intimacy, because I know you love the same God I love,
right? And
you love him the same way I love him, and there's just such a connection there that I would imagine that's something you could speak to, that you've already started to see as she's been serving on the worship team, and you see her see her serving in the children's ministry too.
Yeah. Well, it's it's so different. Being with somebody which is my fault. I've never been with somebody the same depth and the same gets it as me. I've always thought oh, she'll get there, with previous people I've been with, but with someone like Rachel, to be able to pray together and just sit in the presence of God together has been just unreal. And just to think we're going to be living together and doing this more together, and even just having the support in ministry, she's never frustrated with how busy I get or with how most of my evenings sometimes are taken. And even I had a weird dream the other night where I was a missionary in a foreign country, in the Middle East. And I told her, I was I just had the weirdest dream that I was a missionary, and me and you were overseas. And I was yeah, thank God that will never happen. And she was if God calls us to that country, we're going.
Wow.
And I was oh, okay. Just that mindset that, if God, I'm willing to follow you and to lead with you, that it's not, if I get a call about a church in wherever that country was, it's not ooh, I'm gonna have to bring this to her. It's she's already on board.
Yep.
So it's just cool to have that mindset together that I've never had. And that why I know she's the one is just to have that is crazy. Yeah. This is crazy. Yeah.
It's nuts, man. And I'll tell you, one thing I've learned, especially in ministry, is when you and your spouse are both 100% devoted to whatever God wants, even when an opportunity is presented and there might be hesitation, God will unify that heart, or he'll make it very clear to both of you. So perfect example, when we were down at Logan, we were only there for 2 years. And so it wasn't a lot of time, but we were just feeling like God's stirring something. And she's like, no, he's not. Like he's like, we have a 2,800 square foot house right now with a 2.5 car garage. Like, we ain't moving. Like we're set. This is all right. And there was literally one Sunday, pastor was preaching a message. It was all about listening to the voice of God and being obedient. And she literally, without me saying anything, I didn't prompt, didn't give her a side eye or nothing, literally leans over, looks at me in the eye, and she says, we're moving, aren't we? And I was like, I think God's telling us. She goes, I think he is too. And so just that utter obedience of listening to God, both of you from either side, whether that is a difficult decision or not, when you're aligned with somebody who is chasing after the will of God just as much as you are, if not more than you are, then there's that just, okay, we're doing this for the Lord, so we got to do what we got to do. Mm-hmm. And though those things might not be easy, if you're with somebody who wants what the Lord wants, it's going to make everything easier.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and now look at where we're at. God has blessed our socks off, and wouldn't have done that if we weren't here.
Bless the socks off.
I know, man. Come on.
All right. So before we wrap this up, I do want to kind of address those that feel like, well, I'm kind of left out of this.
Yeah.
And I know we have some that might be listening that either one, they were in a relationship like this and they've lost their spouse, or they've wanted to be in a relationship like this and they haven't found that person yet.
Yeah.
And, recognizing that although this is what God has had for us, that doesn't mean that is exactly what God has for every person.
Yep.
I think of, the Apostle Paul, that like he chose to live a different life because of the calling that God had put on his life.
Yep. Peter
had a life more similar to ours, where he had a spouse that, is in Scripture and obviously was supportive of what he was doing. Mm-hmm. So for many of you that are listening, my encouragement is that if God has put a desire on your heart, don't lose hope.
Yeah.
Pray. Mm-hmm. And don't try to force it.
Yeah.
Trust in God's timing and God's provision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't want the wrong partnership.
Yeah.
If there is to be a partnership, you want the right one.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And even if that doesn't seem like something that is in his plan for you, there are other avenues as well.
Yep.
You spoke to how you've been part of a community. Mm-hmm. And if you want to just speak to a moment for how people can engage and support those people around them, mm-hmm. even if they find themselves at this time alone.
Yeah, for sure. When you were saying that, I specifically came to mind a woman who we knew growing up. Her name was Judy Coker, and she was a friend of my mom's, and she was just on fire for the Lord. She was on fire for the Lord, and for the longest time, she wanted a husband. Her desire was, I just want to find a husband, and God's just not put that person in my path. And there was years and years of just this depression and turmoil. And eventually she just cried out to God, like, God, I need to know what your plan is, because I'm getting desperate here. And she shared a moment where she specifically remembered God saying, what if my plan is for you and to just follow me no matter what I say, or no matter what you want? Like, what if you just choose to follow me? And it totally flipped her life around. And she never did find a husband. I mean, she's still single to this day. But it was that moment of obedience of like, okay, God, I there's certain things I want, but if it's not in the cards, I'm going to trust you and follow you and know that no matter what, your timing's perfect. And even what you said to finding the right person, I'm pretty sure we can all attest to this a little bit. Maybe you not as much because you and Susan have been together for so long, but I've found the quote unquote one a couple times in my life, right? Yeah, and thought like, this person's not picture perfect what I thought God would have for me, but I think we can make this work.
Right.
And it never did. It never did. And a lot of times it got really, really ugly. And funny enough, I'll share this last story, then I'll stop. So I was in a pretty wicked bad relationship before I met Kristen. It was bad, like ugly, the whole 9 yards. It was not a pretty situation. And so after we officially broke up and she moved on, I told myself and I told God, I was like, you know what? I ain't dating for a long time. Like, I'm going to be single. I'm going to go do my thing. I was traveling with the band. I'm like, I'm just going to go have fun with my life. God, unless you put the one in my path, I'm not even talking about a relationship for at least a year. Kristen fell in my lap like a week later. Not physically fell in my lap, but we met about a week later.
What a weird coincidence.
Crazy, huh? And funny enough, she went through a similar situation where she was in a relationship. It wasn't a bad relationship, but it just wasn't the one for her. And she had said after they broke up, she's like, I have no intentions of finding a relationship unless God puts my husband in my path. And sure enough, we met. And if you know Kristen and I, we are not similar people. And even more so when we met, we were pretty opposite human beings, to the point where when I told her friend that I thought she was pretty and she should say hi for me, Kristen's response was, I would never take that home to my dad. So that was Kristen's first response to me. And here we are, almost 11 years in with 2 kids.
Nice.
Doing life together. So God is a funny way. So all that to say, for that person feeling left out, God has a plan for everybody. It might not look like my plan. It's not going to look like your plan or your plan, but God has a plan and his timing's perfect. And you just have to lean in and trust, and know that God may be just getting you ready for that season. You might not be ready to find that person yet. And God's just training you up for when the timing is right to put that person in your life. We don't know God's plan, but we have to trust it because its plan is perfect. Mm-hmm. So,
amen. Well, I would encourage you that while you're in this waiting period, or maybe while you're just living the dream, that all the while you would continue to worship him through whatever the circumstances are. We also encourage you to check out everything that's going on in the church by going to shepnaz.org. We'd love it if you would follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Do those comments, likes, subscribe, hit the bell so that you get the notifications when we publish new content. For Pastors Zack and Noah, I'm Joe. Have a great day. This podcast is a production of the Shepherd Church of the Nazarene, Gahanna, Ohio. Email to podcast@shepnaz.org and let us know what you think.
you're getting married.
You should keep that in.